Hello and welcome to another episode of the Course Creators Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Cordiner. Now, today we are talking all about teaching, training, and in particular, facilitating virtual workshops. As we know, this is why we are here. Well, this is the Course Creators Podcast, and we are talking all about how to share our expertise online. Why? Well, at the moment, it's the only way we can get out there and impact lots of people. But of course, it is the number one way to reach a huge audience from your spare bedroom, from your mobile phone, from anywhere in the world. And you can never, ever underestimate just how much impact you can make by sharing what you know and sharing that in a way that other people can engage with. Now, today we are talking all about creating unpredictable workshop experiences that predictably work. And we have an expert facilitator here. Her name is Leanne Hughes, and she's the founder of First Time Facilitators. Today, she's going to be taking us through some absolutely incredible tips. I am so excited to hear from my fellow experts in the field who are here to share their teaching knowledge, their teaching experiences too. We're going to be talking all about how to use contrast to make your workshops more exciting. We're going to be talking about fun things that you can do to spice up your virtual workshops. We're also going to get lots of other secret tips you have to keep listening to find out. Leanne Hughes, welcome to the Course Creators Podcast. It's amazing to have you here today.
What an intro, Sarah. I'm so impressed with how you just riffed off that. It's incredible. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Brilliant. So First Time Facilitators, tell us about your business, what you do, and how you're helping people educate and share their expertise and knowledge with the world. It's amazing.
Yeah. So it really just started with a podcast, and it happened when I was working for a global mining company, and I was thrown into the role of having to facilitate leadership programs. So they sent me over to Canada to a place called Fort McMurray. So I didn't get to go to Vancouver. I went straight into, it was like the Mackay of Canada. And I was facilitating these workshops for mainly, it was like 20 or 30 male miners. And it was the first time that I'd really sort of done this on my own. And I was really quite nervous. I was jet lagged, all these things going against me. And on the second half of the first day, something happened where I was running an activity, a participant didn't want to participate. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, like, what do I do now? Thankfully, scurried together to get it on track. But when I got back to Australia, I rang all of my facilitation friends and I said, what would you have done in this situation? And really what the podcast is just scaling those phone conversations. So reaching out to facilitators around the world and finding out how they make workshops engaging, how they manage behavior and what they do. And that's really spun off into helping people like executives, people all around the world facilitate better workshop experiences. Just started from that awful incident in Canada.
Unbelievable. And look, we've got a lot of people listening today who are pretty much doing this for the first time. You know, a lot of people have been thrown out of what they know. They're experts in their field. They have been teaching, training, consulting, coaching, leading in all kinds of different ways in all kinds of different industries here, and are just literally being forced to going online to do this. And it is a completely different experience. We all know, anyone who's taught face to face, you bounce off human beings, don't you? You bounce off the energy of the people in the room. You kind of get a feel whether what you're saying is like hitting the right spot or not, and you kind of adapt on the spot. But the second you look down the barrel of a lens, and I call it the barrel of a lens because some people it feels like you've got the barrel of a gun at you, it's like all of a sudden we forget how to speak, we forget how to like even stand or articulate anything in some coherent manner, let alone be engaging and exciting and have any kind of personality when we first start doing this. We all start there. I want to make that clear. We all do. For those people just starting out, Leanne, I have to ask you, because you work with so many people who are in that spot, what advice do you give people who are doing that transition from the classroom or from the corporate training room and going to having to do things online?
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is watch Sarah's YouTube videos, because the way that you're presenting, Sarah, with your hands and the way that you're so animated, it actually does feel like I'm in the same room as you. Like I'm actually feeling your energy. I'm bouncing off it right back at you now. But in terms of advice, I think I'm going to sort of talk about the last few months of my learning curve, because I was like everyone else listening. I was traveling around the world, bouncing off that awesome energy, like getting into that awesome like face-to-face environment. And so for my learning curve, I guess one key thing that really stood out for me was actually getting a bunch of colleagues, 3 or 4 people, and we just hopped on a Zoom call. And the first thing that we did was critique each other's lighting, background, where we were looking, what our face was doing. And then we also tested things out like breakout rooms and got into the tech. Because I think it's like riding a bicycle or even public speaking. You can't get better at it by watching webinars or watching people ride bikes. You actually have to step on. And I've sort of made it a personal thing that every time I'm hosting a webinar or a training session or a live stream, I will just try some new technology. And at the moment, I think it's okay. It's like when you start at a new organization and you're 6 months in and you can kind of make a few mistakes because you're the new person. I think everyone still at this moment is pretty forgiving. So I had a strategic session I was running last Friday for a group, and the link that I used a program called notes.ly to do like random post-it notes, and things weren't loading. It was just, and for me, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to sort of in-person workshops, it felt a bit like, oh, I've stuffed that off, but I've learned from it. And guess what? I won't be using that program again. But it's just testing and having that mindset of it being okay to fail. That's probably how you get better. So that's one tip.
Yeah, definitely. I really love that. The whole practice. I love the fact that you and your friend got together and just had a go. In fact, that's one of the ways that I got better on camera as well. I've got a video recording actually of my first ever video presentation, and I'd been presenting on stages for years, like getting up in front of crowds of people at conferences, like thousands strong, and I was totally fine, skipping around like I was just born to do it. The second I did my first ever camera thing, we were like on this public speaker training course, and we had to do this TED talk. So we were given about 7 minutes or something to do a TED talk, and then like boom, the lights went on, all the cameras went on, and I just went, couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. And I've still got the video recording, and you can actually see my little Nobelinis shaking together.
That's so cute. And I find that so refreshing. Actually, the other day I was hopping on Spotify. I don't know what I was doing. And for some reason, my first episode started playing of my podcast. And I was like, what is this? I could not listen to it. And like, that was 127 episodes ago. But it was like, yeah, we've all got to start somewhere. And I think that's also a problem, actually. We look at people that are awesome at it and we compare ourselves to that, but we don't recognize what they've been through. I mean, the whole overnight success thing, Sarah, I mean, you've been doing video for how long?
Years.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is so true. A lot of people compare, your day one to somebody else's year 14. People look at me like, you're so good at it. Well, at your 14 years, you will be too. Yeah, give yourself a chance. But yeah, like me and my friend, we did the same. So I came back from that experience, and it actually really knocked my confidence, Leanne, because I hold a high standard for myself, and I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I'm going to be great. So for me, when I just was so cocky about it, I thought, well, I've been teaching for so many years, like this is going to be a breeze for me. And then when it wasn't, I really, really was upset by it. I went home and I was proper mad at myself. And I thought, right, after I got over, I had a little tantrum and a bottle of wine, maybe a little cry through. I phoned up my mate and I said, look, mate, you've got to come round. I really need some help. So we got our mobile phones out. No word of a lie. We taped our mobile phone to a tree in the park that was right across my house at the time. And we made a deal that we would do 1 hour a day for 10 days, and we would just talk to the tree and go back and then watch ourselves. So we did that. And obviously by the time we came back to the house, we did pour a nice glass of red, and we sat back and we watched ourselves for a whole entire hour, and we kept pausing the video. And I was like, right, Sam, so, I've noticed you keep saying this word all the time. And he was like, right, Sarah, I noticed that you keep doing this thing with your face. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, let's watch it again. And it really, I absolutely cannot say how much something as simple as talking to a tree and watching the video back completely transformed my presentation on camera skills. I mean, that's what you were saying, and you and your friend, that's all it takes. I think a lot of people put so much pressure on themselves that they've got to like have all this fancy stuff. It's just doing it over and over again.
Absolutely. And I think they put themselves in that environment where it's like with a client for the first time. And so I guess my example of what you did, I did a 30-day Instagram story challenge last year where every day I'll just post a video. I mean, nothing was happening every day, so I'll just post about random stuff, but it was all about connecting with the camera, connecting with my message. And even now I've got a friend in Singapore and we're just WhatsApping each other videos. He's a big YouTuber, so his are amazing. But the fact that I'm responding back and I'm getting more succinct, it's these little small experiments that then you can take when you are in a big scenario where your cortisol levels and you are high, you can end up relying on that daily practice. It's so important.
It's interesting you mentioned the whole, the cortisol thing and the what if I do it wrong? What if I stuff up? You're saying that people are being really forgiving at the moment. One thing I've seen and working with a lot of people in this space is that people are like, if I make a mistake or I trip over my words or I forget what I'm going to say, my whole business is over. My career's ruined. My reputation's ruined. The CNN are going to be banging at my front door, ready to mock me. And the thing is, like, nobody really cares that much. So if you and I, Leanne, were like down the pub having a chat or a conversation right now, and I forgot what I was going to say next, we would just talk and I'd go, oh, what was I saying? Where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. And then I'd carry on. And it's really funny. We think when we're on camera, all of a sudden, like, we're not allowed to be human anymore. When I forget what I'm saying on camera, I just go, hang on a minute, what was I saying? Oh, blah, blah. Ah, yes. And that's it. I don't even chop that stuff out anymore.
No, actually, it's really interesting that you say that. So when I was in Hong Kong last year, I was running some leadership workshops. And I think it was on the third day, I did stuff something up. I don't even know what it was. But one of the participants at the end, he's like, because my favorite part of that workshop was when you stuffed it up. I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh, just like you were more human. I could connect with you a bit more. And actually, one of my favorite authors, a guy called Michael Bungay Stanier, he wrote the book, The Coaching Habit. He actually does, like, he's got awful handwriting, but he goes, I will actually write on flip charts in my awful writing because it actually lowers my status and people can actually connect with me a bit more. I'm more human to them. So, I mean, it comes back to that whole authentic, vulnerable kind of thing, not doing it on purpose, but just saying, actually, people are also great with you stuffing up and it makes you more real and more relatable.
It's really, really true. And I think we just have to go back and looking at ourselves. When I see first time course creators as well, I notice that they start talking like this. They'll go, so you may feel today that you don't really know if you want to. So I'm just giving the tone, not yes. What I'm saying. And I have to say to some of my students, the ones that can kind of take a little bit more of a push from me, is some people who I just kind of let them be a bit more gentle. But I know there's some people who are going to just be okay with me, just give it a little bit more of a push. And I'm like, dude, would you actually talk to me like that if we were having a sandwich together? Like, would you actually? Sarah, blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, we just chat, man, like chat, chill. It's really, I'm not laughing at anyone. This is exactly what I did for about 2 or 3 years. And I look back at some of those videos too, and I was like, wow, why do we forget to just be people?
But it's also like, I mean, it's funny that you say that because I'm not going on a rant here because I reckon I've done this too, but on LinkedIn, people use like really big words and like, all those corporate buzzwords in their posts. And I think, would you actually say that? I just tap out when I see those words. It's like, let's just talk like normal humans. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I know what they're going through because I used to always, in my proposals and all of that, I would like jack the language up. But it's all about keeping it simple and again, relatable, like you say.
Yeah, totally. Now, our topic today, we're talking creating unpredictable workshop experiences. Now that sounds terrifying, that predictably work. So we've got a few tips that you want to share with us today. Leanne, what have you got for us? I mean, just give us all your knowledge.
Oh gosh, there's so much. I guess I'll probably go back to one of my philosophies, which is contrast. That's like a word that I hold really high because a lot of people think they've got to do like bring in crazy tech tools, particularly with virtual or like X factor ideas. But what I really think about is how are you over the course of like your 1 hour session, over the course of your day, how are you bringing in contrast? What I mean by that is, are you sitting down? Are you standing up? Are you at the front of the room? Are you at the back of the room? Are you telling? Are you listening? Are you asking questions, relating stories? And it's all about weaving in, this is where unpredictability comes in, because I guess, I don't know what your experience has been attending corporate workshops, Sarah, but mine is certainly, this has come out of a problem that I see that they all start the same. It's like you get in there, you grab your seat, the facilitator's like running around, keeping busy, like shuffling paper. They get up, they introduce themselves, and then they just sort of talk to a PowerPoint. That's what I was seeing a lot of the time. And all unpredictability is just thinking, okay, so what are people expecting? They're usually expecting that. Well, what can I do differently? So it's usually something like, as soon as I get in, back of the room, get everyone to stand up, start talking. I actually got to the stage, I think once or twice, where I actually even forgot to introduce myself. So I took it a bit too far. Talking about stuffing it up. I was like, okay, yeah, I've got to establish credibility here. But yeah, I think it's just thinking about what is everyone expecting and then spinning that on its head. So when it comes to virtual, I'll take the same principles into that. What I'm seeing in a lot of webinars and live training sessions is people enter the Zoom room and then they're being talked at for an hour. So what I do is first, like straight away, is just put a simple, I call it like a low friction question, like an icebreaker question. People, it's easy to answer. It could be, would you rather live somewhere where it's always hot, like you, Sarah, in Broome, or somewhere where it's always cold? And just get a bit of conversation happening, because right at the beginning, then you're setting a tone of, hey, this is going to be different. It's going to be interactive. And I know that it's not difficult to do. You don't need to know any tech to be able to do that. But on all the calls that I've joined the last 3 months, I'd say about 10% of people are actually doing it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Unexpected. I like it. So I love that. I love that concept of contrast, because when you said that, I was thinking, oh, are we talking about contrast on PowerPoint slides in terms of color? Are we talking about contrast in terms of our background behind us? Or so I really, really like that concept. Really nice. Be unpredictable. Cool tip. Okay, right. You've written that one down. Now you've put a little note to me that you're going to give us a tip on some fun things that we can do to spice up virtual workshops. Now, when we say fun things, sometimes that can scare some people, because some of us, particularly if we're working with corporates or government type clients, or we're teaching a topic that might be a little bit more sensitive. I've got a lot of clients that work, for instance, in the space of child abuse, stress and anxiety, trauma, overcoming those kinds of things. And we kind of go, well, is it appropriate to bring fun into everything that we do or not? And when we mean fun, do we mean doing silly exercise icebreakers, like saying, what kind of vegetable are you? What do we mean when we say fun? Because a lot of people really have some funny preconceptions around what the word fun in training means. I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Oh yeah, it's very polarizing actually. And I guess it's more, instead of fun, I'd probably say, it needs to be absolutely appropriate. And you've always got to link in whatever you're doing to what the content or outcome is. Now, I find that really easy to do. I think with any icebreaker, it's actually, I don't know, I've got no problem connecting two really random concepts. It's just the way that my brain works. But I've worked with very serious people, executives and engineers all around the world, and it comes at a certain time. So I won't actually start off with something fun. I'd be more like creating a hook or talking about the problem, really amping up the problem and saying, okay, we're here because we're looking at a solution. And then it's usually once I've developed that trust, people are open and talking to each other, that I'll bring in the fun element. Now, by fun, it doesn't mean, I really don't like 2 truths and a lie. That's like, it's so old school. Like there's so much more that you can do. But fun is also like ways of raising the energy. And when I was talking about contrast before, Sarah, that also comes to energy. So it's not about having a workshop that's all high energy or all low energy. It's like, how do you manage that? Because that is what we're battling for. But we're battling for everyone's attention. So it's all about bringing and weaving that contrast in. So in terms of fun, okay, so some simple things with virtual. What I've done is at the beginning of a webinar, I don't know if you've seen on Pinterest, but there's those images where you can pick like, what's your superhero name? And it's like the first letter of your first name and your star sign, and then you create a name. And so people like will rename themselves in chat, something again, very simple, just based off an image. But it's also, in terms of fun, I think just getting that interaction happening. So can you, there's an example where you get people drawing things, and so they're interacting with your presentation, but not actually through the technology. It's by interacting in their home environment. And I think, with humor as well, I think we do like humor actually, particularly on tough topics. Is it appropriate? What humor can do is actually disarm a lot of people and make people connect with each other even more. But it's, balancing the appropriateness of that.
Yeah, I really like it. I love how you mentioned that energy flow, and without freaking out anyone who's new here thinking, oh my gosh, I have something else to think about. I think the more you do this, the easier this becomes to do quite naturally about your thinking. But I like to think of it a little bit like a movie. And you know how, when you watch any good movie, any blockbuster out there, and there's moments where, you're kind of really terrified and you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen to the good guy? And then they're in love. And then there's like, oh, they're falling in love. Will they? Oh, will they not? And it's that whole kind kind of storyline of, and then something terrible's happened, and you go from hope to joy to peace and calm to the big bad war, and and you can really do that in a training room as well, depending on what kind of topic you're teaching. We kind of have those real quiet, calm, introspective, self-reflection type moments, which is comes on with that reflective learning element. Then you go in and you bring in that social learning element, and you kind of bring some group work together and get the energy up there. Then you challenge people and you put them up front by themselves, and all of a sudden they have to be in a position of leading and sharing their perspective, their thought on the process. And it's kind of what happens in a movie by just simply doing different activities like that. It's amazing how you can literally control that energy that they go through, that keeps them just completely hooked on what you're doing the whole way through. So it's so clever. Thank you. That's a wicked tip. And I love, that there are so many cool ways we can find these icebreakers that aren't necessarily, passing a balloon between each other's crutches and things. Who wants to do that with their boss? I had a really funny one actually that just reminded me. There was a really cool one I did online. It was quite a long time ago, but I found it through Facebook. So it wasn't my idea. I got it from someone else. And basically this person had got a cat's face, and obviously using some kind of Photoshop had removed the cat's face. So all it was a photograph of this little white fluffy cat with no facial features on it, which kind of looked creepy, but then everyone basically had to take the cat, and they had to draw the face on the cat. And it was so interesting what came back, because there were some people who did really, really delicate lines, very, very intricate, realistic type cats. Then there were other people who were like thug cats, and they had like this baseball cap on and a big cigar hanging out and a thug chain. And it was really cool, because I was like, wow, I learned so much about who I had in the virtual room based on how they draw their cat face. And it was quite interesting. And of course, it just made everyone absolutely laugh their socks off when they saw what everyone else had drawn. So that was one of my favorite online ones I've ever done, actually. It was pretty good.
That's awesome. I'm going to use it. Thank you.
I know, right? It's so good. Now, look, our world as online educators is just changing constantly. And we, especially now, look at the last 3 months alone, how much change, what we do, how we do it, what tech to use. Like you say, there's something new that we can learn and do every single week to make our online virtual training really good. So how would our course creators, educators, trainers and assessors, how can we keep our skills up to date?
I guess some things that I've been doing, and this is how I got better as a facilitator as well. I'm not too sure about you, Sarah, if this happened to you, but because I love learning, I'd go to all the workshops, all the presentations, and I was not only learning the content, but I was taking it a step above and going, what is this facilitator doing? I literally just write down what activities they were doing, how they were presenting, and I'd just notice. So I think as a facilitator, probably one of the top skills is your ability to observe. So I would just start doing that now. And there was a guy I had on my podcast, he went to 128 webinars, and he watched the recordings, him and his son, and they were taking notes on what was working and what wasn't. So that's probably what I'd do first, would be the participant and just observe what's going on. And think, okay, will that resonate with my style? And how would I implement that in my next session? And it's kind of, I don't know, Sarah, if you do this as well, but I actually I have this inner voice that goes, just give it a go. Like, just, because there's all this fear of not trying something new and being really comfortable in, just getting on there, sharing the slides and talking through them. But you actually need to give yourself a push and go, look, if I'm actually going to improve at this, I've got to try. So yeah, like I said, my philosophy, find out what's working from other people and try one new thing. And if it fails, I've learned something, I'm failing forward. But you're continually iterating and adjusting, I think. So it's important to have that mindset and also be kind to yourself when things don't work.
Love it. Now let's talk about mistakes. We've said today, so many people are scared of making them.
Yeah.
I'm personally a little bit of a risk taker. I just have a kind of that more extroverted personality that I couldn't care less if I fell over in front of a whole crowd of people. I'd jump up and go, way. but yeah, for some people, making a mistake is just daunting, mortifying, and absolutely horrific. We're all different, so completely understand the fear that people feel about making mistakes. But with that in mind, with it's kind of okay to make a mistake in mind, we also want to be prepared to reduce our risk of making mistakes as far as we possibly can. What are the most common mistakes that you're seeing out there that we can kind of help people be aware of so that they're not making those?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think prevention is absolutely better than cure. There's a really great model, David Rock, the SCARF model. It's a neuroscience model where he talks about the way humans behave and situations that put them under threat. So I'll quickly explain some of those key models. But what I think about with that model is, with the people in my workshop environment, I don't want them to feel like they're under threat. Now, a few things can set and trigger people off. One thing is uncertainty. So a lot of the time they'll come to a workshop or jump onto the webinar and they're not even sure, what it's about, what the outcomes are, why they were invited. And so one thing that I've been doing with clients is a week before, I'll just shoot a video saying, hey, my name's Leanne. So they know who I am. That's one thing. They're certain on who is running this. They can stalk me if they like. But also, like, this is what we're going to cover. This is what I expect of you. I'd like you to join. Do I want them to join with their video on or off or audio? So setting that up, because some people join these online sessions and they're asked to go into breakout rooms, but they're in their pajamas sitting in the lounge room. Okay, so it's all about how do you give them as much certainty as possible so they don't feel threatened from the moment that you start. I think that's really important. There's also some models that I'll bring in if it's like an all-day workshop. And if I'm expecting people to get out of their comfort zone in the workshop, I'll talk through things like, I'll bring in the company values. There's usually something in there about like integrity or innovation. Innovation is really about testing new things and getting out of your comfort zone. But also talk about the process of learning and how you have to go through those ouch moments to get better. So then every time in a workshop where there's a situation where they might have to step outside their comfort zone, I relate it back to a model that I've spoken about before. And that was my insurance policy in Canada when it went a bit belly up and one of the guys just didn't want to participate. I'd had a model and the values and I referred back to that and brought it back on track. So yeah, a bit of an insurance policy there.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. You mentioned the whole being on the spot thing. I remember being at school and I was primary school level. Do you ever remember when did you ever have one of those teachers who would like put you on the spot with a maths question or something? And you're like, and normally they pick on me because I was talking or doing something naughty. But the teacher just goes boom and puts you in a unnecessarily uncomfortable position where you just, with the word threatened you use, I just genuinely felt like I was about to be publicly shamed. I swear to this day, it's why I'm still traumatized by maths. But it's just like, ain't nobody gonna learn from that, right? No sticking guns at your people in the hope that I will make you listen. It's like we're adults, and I think in the adult learning space, adults are coming there with their own decision-making mind in place. And yes, with kids you teach slightly differently, that the whole pedagogy compared to andragogy, but you need to kind of snap their attention back. But with an adult, my personal preference is don't threaten them. Don't put them in that position of feeling like I have to perform right now, because you're going to lose those people straight away.
Yes. Actually, really good point. So that SCARF model, S stands for status. So that's when you put someone on the spot like that, you might be threatening their intelligence, which is threatening their status. And so in terms of questions, I usually ask questions that don't have a right or wrong answer, because if you get it wrong, then it's like, oh gosh, that's a real threat to my status. And as a result, people around see that and they think I'm not going to be brave enough to respond. So I usually ask questions where we can actually generate conversation. There is no right or wrong, but it links back to exactly what you were talking about with your maths teacher.
Yeah, and make questions. I love the questions with students that are more like, how do you feel about that? What are your thoughts on that topic? Yeah. Rather than, is it red or green? It's, what are your thoughts on, about red or green? It makes such a big difference, because then they're like, oh, well, my opinion matters. Here I'm now here to share what and everyone loves talking about their opinion. It's such a safer way to make that learning exploration, isn't it? Amazing. Well, we're coming close to the end now, and we do have have a bunch of links, by the way, for you listening in the show notes below. Leanne has got an amazing link to her Facebook group, which you have to join. The Facebook group is called First Time Facilitator. And of course, her own podcast, which is all of you listening, course creators, trainers, teachers, facilitators, please go and jump onto Leanne's podcast. You will learn so much from there. And all of those links are in the area below. Now, Leanne, just before you go, I would really love for people to hear your tips and advice on that day one of creating an online course. You're looking at the blank page, you know you want to create one, you know you want to or deliver virtual training, or you want to put that virtual workshop together. We all know that day one is like the most overwhelming, terrifying, where do I even begin moment ever. What advice would you give people who are in this very beginning stage of having to present online in some capacity?
Oh, I love this. So I think the temptation is for people that I've got to generate this course. The temptation is I'm going to open up PowerPoint or Google Slides and just start drafting. I would say step away from Google Slides, step away from Google, because everyone's on there searching for activities and content. If you're being asked to deliver this, you've got it already. So I would suggest walking outside, taking some Post-it notes, setting a 10-minute timer, and just brain dumping everything you know about the topic, everything you know about it. Stopping, having a break, setting another timer for 10 minutes, adding your extra thoughts, and then just categorizing, looking at different themes. The other thing that I always do, which I think this is much more fun, is I'll just talk to people that have the problem I'm trying to solve and ask them, if you had a magic wand and you could solve anything about this, what would that be? So that's more fun for me. I'm an extrovert like you, Sarah. I just love talking to people. And I'll just note down what they're saying. I'll literally just transcribe it. I won't translate it, right, word for word. And that's what I use then to create the modules that I have in my program. So I'd say don't get it onto PowerPoint or Word. Don't look at the blank cursor on your screen. Get outside, put a timer on, and have fun with it.
Absolutely love that tip. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely couldn't agree more. Fantastic. Look, so make sure you go and check out the links in the show notes below, and do go and follow Leanne and all of the expertise that she has there to help you teach, present and facilitate better, both in person and online. Leanne, it's been amazing having you here today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I've loved your story, Sarah. So cool. Thanks for the opportunity.
Brilliant. Now, if you want to create your very own online courses, do come on over and join my next Concept to Course program. It's a 30-day group coaching program where I will help you create your very own profitable and engaging online course with a small group of others who are on the same journey too. You can come along and join us there at sarahcorden.com/do it. Until then, bye-bye for now.